goodness. Therefore, we ask our Lord to come to this world, and with its power, forcefully watch over us and transform us, so as to create a brand new, perfect human civilization. Are the Adventists loyal believers in this plan? Of course. Commander, please do not believe false rumors. It's not a false rumor, a man shouted. He made his way to the front. I'm Raphael, from Israel. 3 years ago, my 14-year-old son died in an accident. I had his kidney donated to a Palestinian girl suffering kidney failure as an expression of my hope that the two peoples could live together in peace. For this ideal, I was willing to give my life. Many Israelis and Palestinians sincerely strove toward the same goal by my side. But all this was useless. Our home remained trapped in the quagmire of cycles of vengeance. Eventually, I lost hope in the human race and joined the ETO. Desperation turned me from a pacifist into an extremist. Also, probably because I donated so much money to the organization, I became a core member of the Adventists. Let me tell you now, the Adventists have their own secret agenda. And it is this: the human race is an evil species. Human civilization has committed unforgivable crimes against the earth and must be punished. The ultimate goal of the Adventists is to ask our Lord to carry out this divine punishment, the destruction of all humankind. The real program of the Adventists is already an open secret, someone shouted. But what you don't know is that this was not a program they evolved into. It was the goal set out at the very beginning. It's been the lifelong dream of Mike Evans, the mastermind behind the Adventists. He lied to the organization and fooled everyone, including the commander. Evans has been working toward this goal from the very start. He turned the Adventists into a kingdom of terror populated by extreme environmentalists and madmen who hated the human race. I didn't know Evans's real thoughts until much later, he said. Still, I tried to patch over the differences to allow the ETO to remain whole. But some of the other acts committed by Adventists lately have made the effort impossible. Pan said, Commander, the Adventists are the core of ETO. Without us, there is no Earth Trisolaris movement. But this is no excuse for you to monopolize all communications between our Lord and the organization. We built the second Red Coast base, of course we should operate it. The Adventists took advantage of this and committed an unforgivable betrayal of the organization. You intercepted the messages from our Lord to the organization and passed on only a small portion of them. Even those, you distorted. Also, through the second Red Coast base, you sent a large amount of information to our Lord without the organization's approval. Silence descended over the meeting like a monstrous thing. Wang's scalp began to tingle. Pan did not answer. His expression became cold, as if to say, finally, it has happened. There is much evidence of the Adventists' betrayal. Comrade Shin Yufei was one of the witnesses. Though she belonged to the core group of Adventists, in her heart, she remained a resolute redemptionist. You only discovered this recently, and she already knew too much. When Evans sent you, he wanted you to kill 2 people, not 1. Pan looked around, apparently reassessing the situation. His gesture didn't go. 214. Chapter 21. Rebels of Earth. Unnoticed by Yi. You can see that most people attending this meeting are comrades from the redemptionist faction. I trust that the few Adventists who are here will stand on the side of the organization. But men like Evans and you can no longer be saved. To protect the program and ideals of the ETO, we must completely solve the problem of the Adventists. Silence returned. A few moments later, one of the bodyguards near Yi, a young woman, smiled. She walked toward Pan Han casually. Pan's face changed. He stuck a hand inside the lapel of his jacket, but the young woman dashed quicker than the eye could follow. Before anyone could react, she wrapped one of her slender arms around Pan's neck, placed her other hand on top of his head, and, by applying her unexpected strength at just the right angle, she twisted Pan's head 180 degrees with practiced ease. The cracks from his cervical vertebrae breaking stood out against the complete silence. The young woman's hands immediately let go, as though Pan's head was too hot. Pan fell to the ground, and the gun that had killed Shin Yufei slid under the table. His body still spasmed, and his eyes remained open, his tongue sticking out. But his head no longer moved, as though it were never a part of the rest of his body. Several men came and dragged him away, the blood oozing from his mouth leaving a long trail. "Ah, Xiao Wang, you're here too. How have you been?" Ye's gaze fell on Wang Miao. She smiled kindly at him and nodded. Then she turned to the others. "This is Professor Wang, a member of the Chinese Academy of Sciences and my friend. He researches nanomaterials. This is the first technology our Lord wishes to extinguish from the earth." No one looked at Wang, and Wang had no strength to express himself in any way. He had to pull at the sleeve of the man next to him so that he wouldn't fall, but the man lightly brushed his hand away. "Xiao Wang, why don't I continue to tell you the story of Red Coast from last time? All the comrades here can listen too. This is not a waste of time. In this extraordinary moment, it is a fine time to review the history of our organization." "Red Coast. You weren't done?" Wang asked foolishly. Yi slowly approached the three-body model, seemingly absorbed by the swirling silver spheres. Through the broken window, the setting sun's light fell on the model, and the flying spheres intermittently reflected the light onto the rebel commander, like sparks from a bonfire. 215 No. I've only just started, Yi said softly. 216. Chapter 21. Rebels of Earth. Chapter 22. Red Coast V. Since she entered Red Coast Base, Yi Wenjie had never thought of leaving. After she learned the real purpose of the Red Coast project, top-secret information that even many mid-level cadres at the base didn't know, she cut off her spiritual connection to the outside world and devoted herself to her work. Thereafter, she became even more deeply embedded in the technical core of Red Coast, and began to take on more important research topics. Commissar Lei never forgot that it was Chief Yang who first trusted Yi, but Lei was happy to assign important topics to her. Given Ye's status, she had no rights to the results of her research. And Lei, who had studied astrophysics, was a political officer who was also an intellectual, rare at the time. Thus he could take credit for all of Ye's research results and papers, and cast himself as an exemplary political officer with both technical acumen and revolutionary zeal. The Red Coast project had initially requisitioned Yi because of a paper on an attempted mathematical model of the Sun she had published in the Journal of Astrophysics as a graduate student. Compared to the Earth, the Sun was a far simpler physical system, made almost entirely of hydrogen and helium. Though its physical processes were violent, they were relatively straightforward, only fusing hydrogen into helium. Thus, it was likely that a mathematical model of the Sun could describe it rather precisely. The paper was basic, but Lei and Yang saw in it a hope for a solution to a technical difficulty faced by the Red Coast monitoring system. Solar outages, a common problem in satellite communications, had always plagued the Red Coast monitoring operations.
When the Earth, an artificial satellite, and the Sun are in a straight line, the 217. 218. Chapter 22. Red Coast V. Line of sight from the ground-based antenna to the satellite will have the Sun as its background. The Sun is a giant source of electromagnetic radiation, and, as a result, satellite transmissions to the ground will be overwhelmed by interference from the solar radiation. This problem could not be completely solved, even in the 21st century. The interference that Red Coast had to deal with was similar, but the source of interference was between the source of the transmission and the ground-based receiver. Compared to communication satellites, the solar outages suffered by Red Coast were more frequent and more severe. Red Coast Base as constructed was also much more modest than its original design, such that the transmission and monitoring systems shared the same antenna. This made the times available for monitoring even more precious, and solar outages even more of a problem. Lei and Yang's idea for eliminating interference was very simple: ascertain the frequency spectrum and characteristics of solar radiation in the monitored range, and then filter it out digitally.